Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am making bread. A commenter from my last video mentioned and asked how I did it, and I thought I could do that. I could show a video of how I do it, but I can't take credit for it because my good friend Sarah from across the street made it for me, and I said, I want your bread recipe, and then I made it and it didn't turn out the way she made it. How many times do you ask for a recipe that somebody did? And it's like, what did you do? You didn't give me the recipe. What do you do? And it's just the way they make it. They put love, they put soul into it. And so you try it out and it's like, what in the world? So I'm gonna show you how I make bread. And I'm going to, so you guys can see how I actually do it. But the real trick here, and this is true for every recipe, is you make a journal. So I took my recipe that she had given me and I wrote down on the side things I was going to tweak with it until I got it just right. And then it started coming out just like she made it. So I had to play with a little bit, maybe because of my kitchen, maybe because, you know, the time of, you know, the moon or something, right? So if I show you and I give you this recipe, plan on adjusting it as needed. The other thing too is humidity level. So when you're making bread, depending on where you're at, like my mother-in-law, she's out in Idaho and it is dry. It's dry. I'm like waking up and I look like a lizard. I need lotion and whatever. It's just dry. And so the amount of water that she puts in it would probably be a little bit more, and it's gonna come out a little more crustier in her oven. It's also, there might be problems with raising, making sure that the bread rises properly. So if you live in an area like Arizona, like Utah, like Colorado, places that are dry, you know, anticipate that your bread rising times and how your dough is going to react in its environment is going to be different than me in my good old state of North Carolina, where it is like 100% humidity all the time. Especially now. So during the winter, it's a little bit drier, not like desert dry, but it's a little bit drier. And my bread has been coming out a little bit too wet. So I'm going to be playing with the water proportions a little differently than I normally do it, just because I need to tweak it now that summer is coming around. It's coming around. Any other special notes? We'll be talking about it as we're doing it. So my first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my wheat grinder. The wheat grinder that I have is loud. It sounds like a jet engine. So I'm not gonna audio do that because that would be painful. So let's do this. So what I'm getting out right now is my wheat grinder. This wheat grinder I purchased online. It's a Nutrimill. It's very, very basic. It has 2 buttons. What I'm getting out now is my wheat. This is red wheat, and I don't have enough. No, not enough. Okay, this is me using my weak girl arms to open up our second canister of red wheat. I'm gonna pour that sucker in there. There we go. Yeah, that's better. So I pour in about 4 to 5 cups of hard red wheat into my wheat grinder. Beautiful. Yes. Summer, you need to plug that in, honey. Nope. Yep, there you go. There you go. All right. I wasn't kidding when this thing's loud. So the top button there, that is how fine you want your flour. I put it up on the maximum. The bottom button, the one that you turn on, that changes it to how fast the grains fall into the grinder portion. So I also put that at the lowest possible setting, and that adds to how fine and crushed each grain kernel is. So just make sure your hard wheat is like as fine as you can get. Okay, go ahead and get your mixer out. This is my Bosch mixer. This is here as a plastic dough hook extender. You can get those online, and then I put my actual dough hook on top. And this just ensures that the bread is scraped properly down at the bottom and we don't have anything loose. Fill up your cup of warm water. Tap water's fine. 4 cups of water into the Bosch. collect your assorted ingredients. This includes lemon juice, and that is my jar of yeast, olive oil. Go get your honey. There you go. Good job. And don't forget salt. I do this every once in a while without my salt, and it's not as good. It's not as good. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and a pretty shot of your olive oil. This is a 1/3 cup olive oil. Oh yeah. Olive oil into that. Do the olive oil first, so when you pour your honey into your jar, the honey doesn't stick to it and it just pours right out because your pitcher has been greased properly. That's not a thing. It's just been greased beforehand, and so now your honey pours out really easy. And I put my ingredients away while I'm using them. It helps me keep track of what I've already put in, and also just, helps me clean things. 1/2 tablespoon of yeast. I keep my yeast in the fridge, just keeps it fresh. It's just a habit that, I don't know, somebody told me about it once a long time ago. And I actually get a huge box of it from my local BJ's, and I keep 1 box down in the freezer and then a jar of it in my fridge. Now that we have all of our wet ingredients, I'm gonna get my flour out. If you're gonna purchase flour from your local grocery store, make sure it's whole wheat flour, and you're probably gonna wanna sift it. Oh yeah, look at that. So because this flour is warm, it's been sifted, there's a chemical reaction going on right now just because it's been freshly ground. So it's going to be a little bit different if it's store-bought. The best suggestion I can make if you are buying your hard wheat already ground up is to sift it. It's going to be the best thing. It's going to add extra air. I'm adding 4 cups of flour here, and then I'm going to set the rest of it aside. This is just for the first initial raise, getting that yeast activated. It's going to be very, very wet. So mix it until it's fully incorporated, and then 15 minutes ought to do it, just to let that yeast activate. See how bubbly and happy it is in there? This is happy yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my flour. This is about 4 cups, just based on how thick it is. So pay attention to it. You may want to mix it as you're going, depending on where you're at. So it looks rather dry, but give it a little bit. Also, flour tends to absorb water as it goes and gets wetter over time. See how it's changed so much? This has been kneading for 20 minutes. I've left it on my tabletop, set the timer. 20 minutes later, it's looking big and beautiful and a light color. We're gonna oil our aluminum bowl, get it all nice and greased. I do it with my hands. I grease it with the bowl with my hands just because it makes it easier to get the dough out of my bowl. All right, Summer, come on, get it out there. A lot of it's sticky. This dough is very, very sticky. It's not just automatically releasing. So don't be afraid if your dough is pretty wet. See that stretch of the dough? That's the gluten. What you're seeing are those strands. The longer you knead your dough, the more gluten you will develop. So because we kneaded our dough for 20 minutes in the mixer, it's very, very happy. Lots of good gluten. That's going to make our dough rise really well. So that dough's been rising now for an hour. We're going to punch it, roll it over, make sure it's nice and covered in that oil. It's not drying out at the top. Covering it up with another towel. Set the timer again for 1 more hour. So this is our 2nd hour. Yes, you're very pretty. Hey, Henry. Baby is optional in bread making. Okay, so our bread now has been rising. I'm gonna get my pans out here. I've got 3 different size pans. I've got a small loaf pan, a medium-sized loaf pan that's made out of glass, and then a big aluminum pan. I'm gonna spray all of them down really good with Pam. And then I'm gonna pour out my dough. So typically, if you had all 3 of the same size pans, you would weigh it or something. Oh yeah, yes, we're very proud of you. You would weigh your dough to put it into the bread pans. Because my pans are different shapes, I don't bother. I just cut them. I cut them based on, how much I think is gonna fit in my dough. I'm not nearly that precise. But if your pans are all the same size, girlfriend, go for it. Go ahead and weigh them. Now you'll notice I did not flour my countertop, and I can touch it
right
and
now,
roll it. Oh, how rude.
I'm doing something
You're gonna
called
talk over
shaping.
me?
So I knead it first for a few minutes, and then I'm rolling and pulling it towards me while tucking in this side. I put my hands down over it, pull it towards me, and what that's doing is making this tight up at the top. And then after I've done that a couple of times, I just do it one on each side until I've formed kind of like a brick, and then I pop it in my pan. So knead this one, and I put my hands down and I'm forming a ball first, making it nice and tight. And after I've made it tight and it's a nice pretty little ball, I do it a couple of times to make it into an oval.
You'll notice my countertop has not been floured. Part of the reason is I want that tension in my bread dough, and the other part is that my bread is no longer sticky. It's been raised properly. It's very easy to handle and maneuver. I don't need floured hands or anything like that. And if there was flour on that countertop, I wouldn't be able to develop that good tension that I have there on the top of my bread dough. And that tension helps control the rise and the direction of the rise. Shaping bread dough is very important for success, even though, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing. Look how happy it is in there.
So I've got 1, 2, 3 breads. I'm gonna cover them one more time. I'm gonna set my timer for 30 minutes, and now I'm gonna answer my phone. All right, I'm setting my timer for 30 minutes, and now I'm going to turn my oven to 375. By the time it's done preheating, takes a while, my bread will probably be just about done. Ta-da!
So my bread is risen for 30 minutes. That middle loaf, some of the tension kind of broke out in bubbles. I'm not worried about it. It's not going to ruin my crust. Pop it in the oven. My oven's preheated to 375, and now I'm going to cook it for a good 45 minutes. And now it is happy in there, and I get to enjoy bread. Look. My house smells incredible right now. You guys don't even know. Perfect little breads. There we go. Now, because these have been greased properly, I should be able to just pop them right onto my cooling rack, no problem. Hey, can you try doing that without making your gut look so big? Suck it in, Summer. Suck it in. Nice and hot and beautiful. We're gonna let this cool. Now, for the purpose of this video, I went ahead and cut it. Really, I should have let this cool for another 20 minutes before cutting into it, because these loaves, as beautiful and as tempting as it is, as soon as they are fresh out of the oven, that steam inside of it is going to make those loaves a little bit harder to cut. However, there's exceptions. Oh yeah, there's exceptions.
How is it, guys?
Really good.
Yeah.
I love it.
And that, my friends, is how I make bread. So I have 3 beautiful loaves. We will typically freeze one, and then when I want to reheat it to use it, I'll wrap it in tin foil, pop it in the oven for, you know, like 30 minutes or something until it crisps up again and dethaws. And we chop it up for sandwiches. We typically will, the first day it's really good. The following week it's still pretty tasty, but I like to toast it. Kind of like reignites that freshness. See, is there anything else, Henry, we need to talk about? If you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below. I normally talk about homeschool, but we kind of deviated a little bit and did a bread recipe. So hopefully that was helpful. Down in the description box, I will have the actual full recipe. And I hope you guys are having a great day. Have a good week, guys. Bye.